Good morning. Welcome to Hobby Evolution episode 1215. Happy Monday. Back to work. Back to the grind. Although for me, it ain't no different. Today's going to be a little break. Well, in the afternoon. Yesterday, because of the Madison Card Show, sales have been crazy. Yesterday, though, was my slowest sales day since I think in 2 weeks when I went back and looked at the numbers. I think I had my least amount of sales yesterday in the last 2 weeks. I think it was the lowest sales day since June 10th. So, which kind of came at a good time because I am frantically trying to get everything shipped out here in the next few days. Wanted to get I shipped all day yesterday because I'll be leaving this afternoon and won't be back until Wednesday. And then I've got a few days and then we go to Europe for 2 weeks. So if you have ordered anything in the last 4 days or so, items are shipping out. I think I'm up to orders placed on Friday. So working on that this morning a little bit and just try to get as much shipped out as I can before I leave around lunchtime today. So I'll be heading down to Lake in the Hills, Illinois. Club 400 1984 Cubs reunion. The public party is tomorrow night. I'll be going down this afternoon, doing a little setup work and hanging out down there. And then the party is tomorrow. So looking forward to it. I think there's at least a dozen players confirmed. Sandberg is kind of a game time decision tomorrow. He's just depends on his energy levels. He had a big weekend. Sandberg Game 40th anniversary was yesterday. Unfortunately, Cubs didn't get the W, didn't get to sing the song on Sandberg Day. They unveiled the statue. I know a couple people here in the chat. I know Victor was there. I was getting FOMO, man. And it's like, man, should I have went? And I'm glad I didn't, just because of how busy I'm going to be. I am and going to be in the next few days. So it was cool. You know, one of the things that I saw kind of complaining was that they moved the game, because originally the Cubs-Mets game on Sunday was supposed to be a day game. And so they had everything lined up for the statue unveiling, the day game. I know people had to cancel their trips because they may live hours away. It's perfect for a day game and they just get back late at night. But a night game just doesn't work. Got to work in the morning. Can't drive 4 hours to a night game at Wrigley on a Sunday night. So I get that. But from a perspective of more eyeballs are on it, I think it's cool. I think it's cool that they moved it to Sunday night ESPN. I watched some of the game last night. I wouldn't have watched. I think I have MLB TV on my upstairs TV, but it's just not a place where I watch baseball upstairs in the living room. So I'm never up there watching baseball. It's usually my wife and I are Netflix or whatever. So I don't think I've ever put MLB TV on that TV. But we had went out to dinner last night, got home, and my wife was on the phone with her friend that we're actually traveling, with, her and her husband next week. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to turn the game on. It's on ESPN. I'm going to say this. I highly dislike Boog Sciambi as the Cubs play-by-play announcer. Don't want him on the Cubs broadcast. I just don't like him on the Cubs broadcast. However, I think he's really good on the national games on ESPN. I actually enjoyed the broadcast. And I don't know if it's just, I think he's on the Cubs broadcast. I think he's a little too a little too playful, which is okay. I mean, we had Harry Carey, and we loved that. But with Boog, he almost comes off as a know-it-all, and like he gets very defensive, and he has a terrible rapport, especially with Joe Girardi. It's almost Boog is very combative on the Cubs games. But when he's on the national broadcast, he's not. Yes, Brian says pompous. He's very pompous. He comes off as like a know-it-all. He's got guys in the booth that have played the game, and Boog's just a jock sniffer, just like the rest of us. And it's like, dude, shut up. Like, Joe knows what he's talking about. DeShays knows what he's talking about. Shut up, Boog. But on the ESPN broadcast, I enjoy it. Really good. But not on my Cubs broadcast. So that was last night. We went to dinner last night. We were supposed to go Saturday night, but the Naders were out. So we went last night to Chinese place, and it's not like your typical greasy MSG laden Chinese place. It's actually more, I wouldn't say a healthy option. It's more it's a fresher Chinese. It's not the greasy stuff, which I'm not a big fan of this particular restaurant because of that fact. Like, if I want Chinese, I want the good stuff. I want the stuff that's terrible for me. So Mark says Joe is not exactly, and I think that's probably why it comes out the most with Joe Girardi, is that Joe's combative and so is Boog. And so you put two combative people in the booth together and they're just at each other's throats. And I think that, and it comes across on the broadcast, especially with those two in the booth. So, I want that nasty stuff when I go to Chinese. But we went last night, and it was just the notorious MIL and her friend. And we could have had a meal just on the appetizer plate. Had an appetizer. And I'm not a fan of, they don't have crab rangoon, but they have shrimp rangoon, which is, hey, you got your fried crust and you've got your cream cheese. That's all you need, right? Shrimp meat, crab meat, doesn't matter. It's all good. So that's pretty good. Egg roll. What else was on there? Shrimp. Wontons, I think. And so we had that. And then I had the sweetened, it's kind of like a shareables type, they give you this basically they bring the food out on platters, and it's kind of like you share. So I had sweet and sour chicken, and I'm not a big shareables guy. What do you think? What do you, when you're at a restaurant? I'm not into shareables. Like, this is what I want, and I'm going to eat, and you can't have any. That's what I want to do at a restaurant. I don't want shit past the plate. I don't want to do that. I want sweet and sour chicken. I want it all to myself. But I shared my sweet and sour chicken, and my mother-in-law got oyster beef, which was really good. So I had a little bit of the oyster beef, and then what else was there? Chicken fried rice. So Victor, I'm with you. Yeah, family style is what they call that. So I'm not, I just family style. I hate it. If you want family style, stay at home. Cook yourself. Family style at a restaurant. So that's what we had last night. Came home, watched some of the Cubs game. So excited for the 84 Cubs reunion this week. So no Hobby Evolution tomorrow morning, no Hobby Evolution Wednesday morning. We'll be back Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Central. Recap all the fun. I always say I'm going to try to do some videos, and I never do, and I probably won't this time either. But I will have pictures and Maybe I'll put a little montage together. Maybe not. Probably not. You never know. So that's the Club 400 1984 Cubs reunion. Party is tomorrow night. I think you might be, if you're in the area, you want to attend. I think there's a few tickets left. I think there's a few tickets available. Club400Cubs.com, I believe, is the website, or just Google Club 400 Cubs, and that'll pop up. Scroll down a little bit on the page, and it'll show your ticket options. So I think they usually take tickets down. You can't just, it's not like StubHub. You can't wait till the last second and get a discount. I think they take ticket sales down a day before. So today might be your last chance, and they'll take those ticket sales down. So what else is going on? eBay store. So I'm shipping. You can still buy stuff. Go to 99centcards.com, buy 7 or more at a regular price. You'll save 25% off at checkout. So check that out, 99centcards.com. Adding some vintage. Not sure how much more I will add before I leave, because I don't want to be inundated with sales while I'm gone. I would like to have sales, but not, I don't want to come home to 1,000 items to ship, orders to ship. So I'm going to keep a close eye on it while I'm overseas. And if it starts to get out of hand, I'll scale it back. But I will have my out of office message going, and typically that suppresses my sales. And when I say typically, every time I've done it, it has suppressed my sales. So, and it's very weird. It's like, normally I'm selling normally I have about 120 orders a day, and it seems like if I'm gone for 2 days with the out of office, it's like I have, instead of 120, I have 60 on one day, 60 on the other. I come home to 120. It like keeps right on that tracker. It's kind of crazy how it does that. So let's go to the chat. George in the house, what's going on? Good evening to you. Jason, what's happening? He says smash the like button. Thank you, sir. I don't have a topic today, and it might be a short episode just so I can get back to shipping. We have a follow-up with Biscuits Vet this morning. This is just a follow-up x-ray to make sure the fluids that we're building up have exited the system or decreased, hopefully. So I think today's appointment will either give us more relief or will give us a lot of added stress as we prepare to leave for 2 weeks. So hopefully, fingers crossed, things go for the good at Biscuits Vet appointment. Steve's in the house. Good morning. Victor is here. What's going on? Team Sandberg. Yeah. Rhino was looking good yesterday. Good to see. Good morning. Mikey's in the house. Brian, good morning. I'm loaded my cart with fishing stuff, heading on vacation this week. Where's Shane? I need his best smallmouth advice. Smallmouth. There's a joke in there somewhere. I still haven't. I think when I get back, by the time I'm going to have any time to go down by the pond to fish, it's going to be fall. And it's going to be cold. It's like, I don't want to fish now. It's cold. I want the heat. Bring the heat. Mark, good morning. Mikey says, me and my 10-year-old cousin AJ are watching. What's up, AJ? Good morning. David says, good morning. How was Saturday's show? Saturday's was great. Did a review yesterday, so you can go back and watch the replay. One of the most well-attended shows in Madison in the last few months. Definitely had more traffic than last month, and a lot more traffic than April as well. So that's a good sign. And I know that in not only was there a lot of traffic, but people that were there were spending money. Sometimes you get a lot of traffic, but people are just looky-loos and window shopping and not opening up their wallets. But that wasn't the case Saturday. A lot of people spending money, a lot of happy dealers, which is good. And I think that's going to continue. July 20th is the next Madison Card Show. And typically that's probably the biggest show of the year in terms of people spending money, because people are buying cards to take to the National. And so a lot of happy dealers have left the Madison Card Show each July as they sell a lot of their stuff. So great show. I didn't pick up anything outside of a few dollar cards, and I did buy a Moises Ballesteros auto. Thank you, Mark, one of my dealers, Big Mark. At the end of the show, and he watches some of these shows, and he goes, I know you're not in the buying mood. And I said, well, I'm always in the buying mood, but less so today. And he goes, well, I do have something for you. And he pulled out a Ballesteros Mega Box refractor auto. I'm like, oh, that's nice. I'm like, what do you want? He goes, 15. I'm like, well, I'll buy it for 15. Heck yeah. So I bought that. I think that was the only Cubs purchase I made. I bought a bunch of dime and quarter cards that I'll basically just for future lots, player lots of like Bobby Witt, Julio Rodriguez, Adley Rutschman. He had a bunch in his dime box. He had a bunch of first Bowman Chromes from this year. So there was one player I did lot up already, Ben Williamson, I think. So I think there's 53 of them that I paid a dime each. Actually, I think overall I ended up paying like 15 cents a card because some were in the quarter box. And then I did buy a couple of Otanis for 50 cents a pop. So overall I paid 15 cents a card. So Ben Williamson, I think Seattle Mariners, first Bowman Chrome. So it's a lot. I think I've got 25 or best offer on that and some other stuff. So, and that's about it. And then, Paul, my BCW guy, he had a dollar box and, I picked out 10 cards out of there. So, and that's about it. I think I spent $50 maybe, which was kind of by design. I wasn't really looking to spend, because I've got a ton of inventory. Haven't even really scratched the surface with the latest bulk I bought on Wednesday. In fact, I still need to bring a bunch of boxes in, and still going through the vintage. I still have some stars that I got. I got a 72 Carew sitting right here on top. I've got some Yaz, Carlton Fisk, Garvey, Nolan Ryan, Tom Seaver, Lou Brock, OJ, Peyton. So still a lot of good stuff that I'll get listed here eventually. Tracy, good morning. Lewis, good morning. Kyle, good morning. Hope you finally get a Dale Sr. story out of Jody Davis. It's gonna be pretty crazy tomorrow. I don't know if I'll have much one-on-one time with Jody Davis, but I will try to get a Dale story out of Jody. Red Light 34, good morning. Mr. Archer's in the house. What's happening? Mark says, Edwin Diaz decides to put 10 pounds of sticky stuff on his fingers. That's my team. And they showed photos. It's like, how does he think he's going to get away with this? Zach says, smart. Honor a game that was played during the day by moving the anniversary game to a night game. Did Reinsdorf buy the Cubs? I think it's genius because in 1984, there were no lights at Wrigley Field, so you couldn't have a night game. Back in that day, which I think it was a Saturday, do they do Nash? I don't think they do. It used to be Fox Game of the Week, which was big for me because I didn't have cable growing up. So that was like the only baseball I got to watch was on Saturdays, the noon Fox game, which I don't think they do anymore. But now it's ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. That's like back in the day in 1984, the NBC Saturday Game of the Week. That was the game. That was the only game in town. You didn't have cable. Today, ESPN Sunday Night Baseball is basically today's version of the Game of the Week that was on NBC. So I think it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. And the Cubs did not. By the way, the Cubs didn't move the game. They probably would have kept it a day game. It was MLB's option. MLB kicked him out of the day slot and moved him to ESPN. Brian says Boog is made for national stuff. He's garbage for the Cubs. I agree, 100%. 100%. And I thought that from the very start, and I'm like, I just don't like him. But that's often the case with first-year broadcasters, especially for your team. It's like he's not as good as the last guy. That's just the way we act towards broadcasters. So I gave it a second year, and I'm like, I still don't like him. And now I think it's year 3, and I like him like the least that I've ever liked him. And it's like, he's got to go. Philly Joe, good morning. Boog is pompous. Morning, Charles. What's happening? Joe Girardi and Joe Girardi, Mr. Combative Joe Girardi and Mr. Combative Boog Shambi put them together, and you got a cat fight in the booth. Flawed Thinker, good morning. T206 Kid says, I miss John Miller and Joe Morgan on Sunday Night Baseball. I hated Joe Morgan. I loved and still love John Miller. He was on, they had him in the booth when the Giants and Cubs played. So that was pretty cool. Love John Miller, hated Joe Morgan. But it's like the soundtrack of, younger, I won't say my youth, because I remember more in my early young adulthood, but they were a good broadcast team, even though I don't like Joe Morgan. I know he's passed away, but doesn't change that I didn't like him when he was alive. Tony says they haven't been able to assemble a team like that since. I agree. It's hard. It's hard to find, especially when you have a national broadcast. It's really difficult to have chemistry as broadcasters. It really shows when there's lack of chemistry. It shows when there's really, like John Miller and Joe Morgan, really good chemistry. It showed. Boog Shambi and Joe Girardi, it shows. Usually when you have a local broadcast, a local team, like local broadcast team, typically you find a good fit, and it's not as awful as Boog and Girardi when they get together. It's like, God, these guys hate each other. But yeah, and it's really tough at the national level to put together those teams, because you're not like, at least when you have a local broadcast, when you're following the team game in, game out, like there's a little homerism, and you are together essentially, even though you're not outwardly rooting for the team. And in some cases, I guess you are, but you are coming together for one team. Whereas a national broadcast, it's just, we've got the Mets and Cubs today, and we've got the Giants and Padres next week, and you're just all over the place, and it's difficult to build that chemistry. Christian, good morning. Live for 2 days in a row on a hot streak. Dissed the Tigers offense yesterday and had great results. Doing the same today, hoping for a good result. Tiger bats stink. Speaking of stink, my fantasy baseball team, you don't want to hear about it, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Since I've been in this league, and I think this is year 6 that I've been in this fantasy baseball league, my Sunday, like, what the hell am I doing? I'd like to go back. I wish there was a way to just plug in, like using AI. Like, how many times has my team lost a weekly matchup going into Sunday with like a more than 2-point lead? So it's a head-to-head matchup, so in 12 categories. So I went into Sunday, yesterday morning. The score, I was ahead 8-3-1. Eight categories I was ahead. My opponent was ahead in 3 categories, and we were tied in 1 category. 8-3-1, I was ahead. I ended up losing, I think, 6-4-2. And for most of the day, it was 7-3-2. Or does that math add up? 7-3-2. Yeah, that's 12. And I'm like, what the fuck? It pisses me off. So that would have moved. I think a win would have moved me into 5th place. But now I'm tied for 7th. 6 teams make the playoffs. I had a feeling this was going to be a tough year for me because I really went for broke last year. I traded like 3 or 4 draft picks. So my draft pick, I had really weak draft picks this year. So I had to really be strategic, and apparently I wasn't. So I'm in like purgatory. It's like, do I buy? Do I sell? At this point, I think I'm just gonna sell. I think I'm just gonna trade for draft picks and just rebuild for next year. It doesn't help that one of my 5 keepers is in AAA. I thought I didn't want to lose Jordan Walker because I had a feeling that he would be an early pick in the first, essentially what's the 6th round. And I had another. There's another guy the guy that beat me this week. He's a huge Cardinals homer and always picks up the Cardinals. And he's been clamoring for Jordan Walker. Before we had to set our keepers, I offered him up in trade, and he's like, "Nope, I've got my keeper set." I'm like, "Damn it! You've been asking about him for 2 years." Because I've had him since we started the prospect thing. So, I've held on to Jordan Walker on my roster because I don't want to lose him, and I'm being stubborn. I'm wasting a roster spot for a guy that's in AAA, and I don't think he's playing well in AAA. So it's almost like I should probably just cut bait and grab some random dude. Although maybe I'll reach out to Ben as the guy. Maybe I'll reach out to Ben and be like, "Hey, I'll trade you Jordan Walker for like a 15th round pick, 16th round pick." See what he says. Maybe that's what I'll do. All right. No more fantasy baseball talk. Steve says, "I'm here for the greasy MSG-laden Chinese food." There you go. Love that stuff. East Coast Tom is here. He thanks Zach and Porter for the shout-out yesterday. Orlando, what's going on? Victor doesn't like the family style. I don't share. Zach says, "I only like sharing waters." I think you meant like the pitcher of waters. Let's see. Zach says, "You bet, Tom. Hope to see you again at a future show." George says, "Y'all wouldn't make it well in Korea. A large majority of all restaurant meals are shared, and a lot of them you cook it yourself. They don't even cook it for you." Screw that. They make this, and here it's like we had like where I grew up, there was a cook your own steak place, steakhouse, cook your own steak. And they glamorize cooking your own steak. Like, I mean, really, when you think from a business standpoint, that's genius. Like, yeah, we're just going to put the grill in the middle of the room. We don't have to hire chefs. You just cook your own damn steak. And we're going to and sell it to you like it's a good thing. Like, what the hell? I go to a restaurant, you better cook my steak. If I'm going to eat a steak and cook a steak, I'm going to do it on my grill at my house. I'm not going to go to a restaurant. I'm not going to leave the house and cook a steak in a restaurant. I don't understand what the deal is with that. And people love it. Oh, cook your own steak. Like, you can do that at home. And it's cheaper. I think they do give you a couple bucks off. I think it's like $3 less if you cook your own. If you have the chef cook it, you got to pay the upcharge. And it's like, they almost treat it like it's an upscale steakhouse where you cook your own steak. Fuck that. James says, "Lots of trees down on my way to the card show yesterday in Wisconsin." Where'd you go yesterday? Yeah, we got hit pretty hard. Some areas got hit really hard Saturday night. In fact, our waitress last night at the Chinese restaurant, she said she lives in DeForest, and they got hit really hard. DeForest got hit really hard, which DeForest is a little north of Madison. And then I know south of us, Argyle, like a whole church just got blown, like the whole damn thing just bulldozed, it looked like. Argyle's about an hour south of here, maybe 45 minutes south of here, on your way to nowhere. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's in southern Wisconsin. It's in the middle of nowhere. Mark says, I've gone to NYC's Chinatown for almost 40 years. Great food spoiled me. Flawed Thinker says, I'm the same. My wife always wants a bite of my food, and every time I tell her that she should have ordered it, my wife is the same. We order, there's I guess it's kind of a Chinese place we go to. And they do homemade noodles. It's called Taigu. And I think it is, now that I think about it, I'm totally for sure, because I looked up the name Taigu, and I'm pretty sure Taigu is like a province. Is that what they have in China? I think it's a province or a region. Maybe it's a region in China. So they do homemade noodles. It's great. I don't think it's MSG laden. Maybe more so than the place we went to last night, but it's really good. That's in our rotate. We have like 4 restaurants that we only choose from 4 restaurants. And Taigu's one of them. And where am I going with the story? My wife. So I order typically the sesame chicken is what she really likes. So she'll order like the noodles, and she'll eat like a few bites. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, can I have a piece of your sesame chicken? And she has a piece, and she's like, this is really good. And then she'll like pull it over, and I'm like, you're eating more of my sesame chicken than your own. And she's like, I know, I just really like the sesame chicken better. But guess what? She never, ever has ordered the sesame chicken. She always orders the same noodle dish and always eats more of my dish than her own. And my wife doesn't do leftovers either. And so, which is good, because then I get all the leftovers. But usually there's not much left over of sesame chicken because we both eat it. My wife is the same. Flawed Thinker says, my wife is the type of person that will go to a restaurant and order the exact opposite to what the restaurant is known for, i.e. she orders a burger from Chick-fil-A. See, I don't think my wife doesn't do that. My wife, though, is very picky, and she gets this from her mom, where they will, in fact, case in point last night, you get the appetizer platter, which it comes with, 2 of each or whatever of 5 different appetizers. So they are substituters. They are the king and they are the queens of substitution. And so they're like, so we want the appetizer platter, but instead of this, we want this instead of this instead of this, and this instead of this. So it's like not even what's on the menu. It's completely made up. The order, like we want basically like we want a cheeseburger, but without cheese. Like that's kind of how they order. And then I am like the exact opposite. And it's like, I'll take the appetizer platter. Oh, would you like any subs? No, I want everything that is on there. And I'm going to eat it and like it. George says they bring out the pot or platter of raw stuff and you cook and tend to it. It does piss me off at times. I could just cook at home for cheaper. See, there you go. I'm on team cook at home. I'm not going to cook at a restaurant. Spam Likely's in the house. Cooter, what's up? Good morning. Peter is here. Good morning. Cooter says, have you ever noticed the guy pretending to putt behind Carew on the 72? Ha! That is awesome. No, I have never noticed that. Look at this, because I've got it right there. Look at that. So there's a guy, and I don't know who that is, but he's holding the bat like a golf putter, and there's a baseball, so he is pretending to putt. That is amazing. I have never noticed that. I haven't had too many 72 tops Rod Carews, so that is fantastic. Learn something new every day. Mark says it was on NBC. NBC, or was that WNBC? Mark says, remember very well. I'm old enough to remember watching the 23-22 Phillies Cubs in 1979. I think I have that on DVD. You can order some of these old games on DVD, and like 20 years ago, I ordered it on DVD. Joe Garagiola and Tony Kubek were the soundtrack of my youth. Victor says, I thought Joe left to the Yes Network. Hate Joe Morgan, rest in peace. Yeah, so I'm totally with Victor on both accounts. I also thought Joe left for the Yes Network, but he is still doing some Cubs games. In fact, the first time I heard him, I'm like, God, that sounds like Joe Girardi. And then they start like bickering at each other. I'm like, boy, who's Boog book bickering with now? Sounds like Joe Girardi. So in my Cubs chat, I said, who's on the broadcast with Boog today? And they're like, Girardi. And I'm like, I thought he went to the Yes Network. Apparently maybe they have a trade-off. I don't know. New York didn't want him. We're like, we don't want this guy again. Take him back. Mark says, I grew up with Kurt Gowdy, Joe Garagiola, and Tony Kubek in the 1970s. Must-see TV as a kid. Who did I guess it would have been Joe Buck. Like, I grew up on, and I'm not going to, like, as a kid, I didn't watch much baseball. Mainly because we didn't have WGN, so I didn't get Cubs games. And I really didn't start watching baseball until the on Game of the Week, until the mid-90s. Was it Joe? And it was probably Joe Buck, but I wouldn't say he was the soundtrack to my youth because I just didn't watch much baseball. I would say the soundtrack from a broadcaster standpoint, the voices of my childhood, Harry Carey for sure. Even though I didn't have WG, and it was just like, I mean, he was larger than life, and I just remember him being on in the background. But when in the 90s, like on national stuff, I don't remember. But more so, like I would say, maybe even bigger than that would have been Monday Night Football, and Al Michaels, Dan Deerdorf, Frank Gifford. I think those were the three. Were those the three like main guys in the 90s, throughout the 90s, maybe even into the late 80s? Of course, John Madden, Pat Summerall, some of the voices of my youth. Holmes, what's going on? Good morning. Wasn't able to be on the greatest player episode, but Eric Davis may be the best player I have ever seen, but just couldn't stay healthy. And some people will be like, Eric Davis, but for a couple seasons, he was like, and I think I mentioned this on that show, like Eric Davis was, you thought in 1989, it's like Eric Davis is a Hall of Famer. But yeah, he just couldn't stay healthy. And I'm curious now, like speaking of baseball and we had a pretty heated conversation in my Cubs chat last night. Which I'll talk about here in a second. Eric Davis, he did have a 36.1 career WAR, which pales in comparison to what could have been. Let's go back and see what his WAR would have been in his peak years. WAR. All right, so 1987, 7.9, 5.3 WAR in 86, 7.9 in 87, 4.4 in 88, 2.9 in 89, 3.3 in 90. So basically his peak years were 86, 87, 8, 9, and 90. And in those 5 seasons, he was in the MVP voting all 5 years, 12th, 9th, 13th, 9th, and 12th. All-Star twice in those 5 seasons. He won 3 Gold Gloves in those 5 seasons, 2 Silver Sluggers in those 5 seasons. Eric Davis between 86 and 90 was like, you thought, oh man, this guy is freaking good. But yeah, and then injuries derailed him. He only played 89 games in 91, 76 games in 92. And that's when he was in LA with the Dodgers. So now he's in his 30s. He did play 108 games in 93, but wasn't that great. And then he went to Detroit, and then he was just bouncing around. Detroit for a couple of years, Cincinnati again for a second stint in 1996. Then he went to Baltimore for a couple of years, and then was a Cardinal and a Giant in his final season in 2001. Eric Davis, man. Let's see. Tracy says, I hear you. I was ahead 8-2 with a couple of close categories. I had Assad. Oh, yeah. Ended up only winning 5-4. George says, you got dude who got banned on your team. I guess he's talking about Edwin Diaz, maybe? I don't know. Brian's in the house. Good morning. George says, according to Uncle Roger, MSG stands for makes shit good, right? George says, it's the laziest business model ever. Cook your own steak. Come on out, cook your own steak. Hey, we got a rummage sale update. This is what we were here for. This is what you came for. John is here, and he's ready to beat you up because you were selling repacks at a garage sale. So Brian's rummage sale this weekend, 3-day garage sale, 28 packs of cards sold. How about that? 560 total cards for $28. Also sold an additional $90 of sports memorabilia and homebrew equipment. Very successful garage sale. Nice. How about that? Take that, John. Suck it. Rummage sale repacker. James, prime quarter is like that. That's the one I'm thinking of, the prime quarter. I think there's one in Princeton. Prime quarter is like that. You have an option. It's a shit show. Yeah, the prime quarter. Offbeat All-Stars, Brian says, now I just have to unpack those repacks and get them sorted again. James says, Pheasant Farm in Janesville got pounded. About 40,000 birds missing. Oh, shit. John says, maybe your wife is more of a tapas person. She is. She is. My wife loves tapas. We have one near us called Eno Vino. Card Hobbyist says, if you like shrimp, find a Chinese restaurant that will prepare it like sesame chicken. Sesame shrimp is my favorite, but some places won't make it. Interesting. I'll keep an eye out for that because I like shrimp. I'm not like a big shrimp guy, but every once in a while it's like, oh, shrimp. I'll have the shrimp. Victor and John say hello to each other. John says, Billy Martin pretending to do something on his 1972 tops. I don't have one handy. I just had the Carew on top. Holmes says, shout out to that 70s card show for the basement tape series he is running on episode 12. And John says, thanks. Mark says, I second that. Also loved the Philly-themed Hobby Palooza episode. Orlando says, definitely enjoying the basement tapes. Let's see. John says, thanks, but this is about Bo drilling down into hobby scandals like repacks and franchises waiting too long to honor their heroes with statues. So that was, how about this? I don't think the Cubs waited too long for a Ryne Sandberg statue. In fact, I may go a step beyond and say statues should only be posthumous. Like, should you honor a living person with a statue? I say no. I don't think statues, and I mean, you don't want to honor, especially in today. Like, do you want to honor an athlete in today's era, in today's atmosphere at age 45, 50, when they've been retired for 10 years or 5 years, and who knows what skeletons are in their closet? And we've got all of this. I mean, I think we've torn down more statues in the last few years than we've put up. Sounds like a lot of wasted money building these statues. So I think it should be a posthumous thing. The more I thought about it, I'm like, I don't think they waited too long, and it was perfect timing. 40th anniversary of the Sandberg game. They unveiled the statue the day, the exact anniversary date, June 23rd. So I think it all worked out. Put statues up when guys are dead. Most players, Sandberg's in the Hall of Fame. He was honored. He's a Hall of Famer. But a statue, do we need to put statues up of living people? I think it should be posthumous. That's my take. It's probably a hot take. Travis says, Google Eric Davis 162 game stretch. Okay, I will do that. Eric Davis 162 game stretch comes right up. Finishes my sentence for me. Okay, In a 162 game span, June 11th, 1986 to July 4th, 1987, Eric Davis made 659 plate appearances and batted 308, 406, 622 with 47 homers, 149 runs scored, 123 RBI, and 98 stolen bases. Holy shit. MLB.com, a 5,100 season. Eric Davis could have done it. Oh, so this is even a different. That was from Wikipedia. This is from MLB.com. Let's just get to the numbers here. A lot of fluff in this article. Come on. Where's the numbers? Just give me the damn numbers. Come on. All right, here we go. Similar dates, but this is a 162 game span from June 18th, 1986 through July 10th, 1987. Davis slashed 307, 405, 629, hit 49 home runs, and stole 93 bases. If you shift the dates back a bit from June 8th through June 27th, Davis hit 46 home runs and stole 99 bases. He's the only player in MLB history to have a 162 game stretch with those numbers. A composite of the two periods yields 49 home runs, 99 steals. 5,100 club. Amazing. Travis Bogart, thank you. I didn't know that. That's a phenomenal numbers. Mike Petty, what's going on? He says too much blow for Eric Davis. I'm going to tell you what. I saw Mike Petty for the first time with Orlando on Hobbypalooza. Watched the replay. Mike Petty's a gem on YouTube. We need more Mike Petty content. Good stuff. Orlando and Mike Petty. Go to the Four Collectors YouTube channel. Check out the Hobbypalooza videos. Many of our friends are on there. Orlando and Mike Petty did a video, and it was fascinating. Awesome viewing. Eric Davis was Greg Luzinski with an eating disorder. John says, speaking of laziest business model ever. And there's Travis with the numbers. John says, tantric baseball card garage sale make me limp. Limp Bizkit. Mike says, good morning to Orlando. Did it all for the nookie. Jack Brickhouse, says Scott. Hey. John says, if we don't build statues now, the youth of tomorrow will have nothing to protest. See? Just a waste of statue making. John says, Sandberg waited almost as long as Vic did for his bobblehead. Man. And so I say I'm not a line person, but I've waited in lines for shit. So I think the worst experience of waiting in line for a bobblehead was Jorge Soler. At least Sandberg has a statue. Jorge Soler's never getting a statue. Jorge Soler bobblehead. It was the end of July, 2015, I think. It was like 117 degrees. I'm exaggerating. Hotter than shit. Humid. I mean, just sweaty balls, sweaty ass crack. I mean, just nastiness all around. But I wanted that goddamn Jorge Soler bobblehead. And I was going to get it. I think not only did I wait in line for like an hour, but it's an hour and a half before first pitch. So I'm in line for this damn bobblehead. We get in. We've got 90 minutes. I'm drinking beers. I'm sweating. It is miserable. We're in the bleachers. My wife was with me. She hasn't been back to the bleachers since. We have the Soler bobblehead to remember that day by. It's a great commemoration. And then to top it all off, I mean, the good news is we saw history. John's Philadelphia Phillies and starting pitcher Cole Hamels no-hit my Chicago Cubs. It was the first time the Cubs had been no-hit since Sandy Koufax 50 years prior. So we did witness history, and I got a bobblehead. and we made many memories, of which my wife says, I'm never going to the bleachers again. And I love the bleachers, but it was pretty awful. It was pretty awful that day. Sports card ripping teacher, what's up? He says, I say yes. I really wish Santo would have gone into the hall when he was alive. Him seeing his statue was moving. Didn't take much to get Ronnie emotional. Right. I agree. If you're going to put him in, and, you know, my Hall of Fame, it's like, if you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. It's like 50 years removed. Like, oh, well, now he's a Hall of Famer. How come we didn't put him in 50 years ago? Well, maybe he wasn't a Hall of Famer, and maybe he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Ron Santo shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame as a player. I don't think Santo's a Hall of Fame player, but for what he did for the game of baseball, you know, it's almost like, I think there should be like a Curt Flood wing of the Hall of Fame. It's like contributors, friends of baseball or whatever. And I think there is, isn't there? Where, you know, Santo was a Hall of Fame in terms of just what he did for the game of baseball. You know, he was a great player, but he wasn't a Hall, in my opinion, great player, not a Hall of Famer. But what he did, he was in the game of baseball for so long. He was a great ambassador for the Chicago Cubs, for Major League Baseball. He's a Hall of Famer in that regard. Curt Flood, not a Hall of Fame player, but for what he did to the game, like it or not, should be in the Hall of Fame. George says they would just protest their pronouns. Mike says buy baseball cards of players that are dead, then build them a statue. There you go. Victor had a great time waiting, met tons of Cubs fans along the way. When I wait I won't wait in line, but if I have a beer or more, several beers, then it makes it fun. But if I'm just waiting there, and I don't like just waiting, put a beer in my hand and I'm happy. And yeah, sometimes you get to meet some cool people, make some new friends. Orlando says Petty needs to make content. I agree. Let's get Mike Petty on the YouTube bandwagon. Petty, make some content. Put out some videos. We want to see it. Your fans are awaiting. John says, where do people wait for bobbleheads? Is this during the game? No, it's before the game, before the gates open, and just outside the gates. So basically, like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Wrigley Field. So there is, every game, there's a line to get in before the gates open. You know, kids want to go down, people for the first time, they want to spend as much time inside Wrigley Field as possible. Kids want to go down, get autographs, batting practice. The bleachers, there's always long lines to get into the bleachers because it's first come, first serve. So you want to get down on the wall. So there's always lines to get into the gates, and then multiply that by 5 when there's a bobblehead giveaway, especially if it's Sandberg. I'm sure Victor can say the lines were pretty insane. So that's why that's where people wait for bobbleheads. Shane, what's going on? By the way, Shane was interviewed by Dr. Jim Beckett on Sports Card Insights. I just listened to that a few days ago. That was great stuff. So really enjoyed that. Shane says Royce Lewis 162 game average so far is crazy. While we're on that topic, look that one up on Baseball Reference. Health is some type of thing. Can I Google it? I'm not very good with the Baseball Reference 160. Royce Lewis 162 game stretch. Let's see. This is from Sports Illustrated. Stretching that over a full season, Lewis would be on pace to hit 83 home runs over a 1. Oh, that's just stretching it out. We can play with numbers all. All right. I don't know how to finagle the numbers on Baseball Reference. Eric Davis hit 23 more home runs while Vic was waiting. Sports Card Ripping Teacher says one of the longest all-time lines was for the WWF Cubs Championship Fanny Pack. Oh, man. What's that even look like? Now I'm curious. We'll go to eBay because that might be something they're probably like $200. Cubs WWF championship. What was it, a fanny pack? The thing with bobbleheads is a lot of times they sell them for cheap at the Cubs convention. Like I got the Clark Hogan, speaking of wrestling, I got the Clark Hogan bobblehead, the Nico Horner Star Wars bobblehead, and the third bobblehead. What the hell was the third bobblehead? There was a third one, $50 for all three of them. Mark says, you think that's bad? Imagine waiting in line for a Mets Beanie Baby for 2 hours with a 6-year-old. That doesn't sound fun. That dude from Duryea, last game Hamels pitched for the Phillies. Oh, that's right, because it was right ahead of the trade deadline. Please don't compare Santo to Flood. Flood did what no other man did. I mean, I'm not comparing the two, but I'm comparing them that they both did something good for the game of baseball. I'm not saying they're in the same category, but well, I am. They're in the same category of Hall of Famers, but they just did different things. So I am comparing the two. They're both Hall of Famers. Shane says Santo had a higher career WAR than Ernie Banks. That's something I didn't. WAR, what is it good for? Ryne Santo. Ryne Santo, greatest third baseman of all time, Ryne Santo. Santo had a 70.5 career WAR and played 15 seasons. Ernie Banks. Ernie Banks had a 60. Can you believe that Ernie Banks' career WAR 67.7? That just doesn't, that seems like a typo. How does that work? Okay, so now I'm on the WAR is a stupid stat. How does Ryne Santo have a higher WAR than Ernie Banks? When you look at these numbers, that's fascinating. It also makes me think that WAR is stupid. John says, only place I wait in line is TSA pre-check. Petty's just running down a dream. Curt Flood should have been in with Marvin Miller. There you go. There you go. I agree. Lee Elia did say Cubs fans had nothing better to do during the day. See? Council needs to do that or throw a bunch of bats and tell everyone to get in the shower. I wonder what Schmidt's WAR was compared to Santos. WAR is based on walks. George says he was just meaning look at his 162 game average on Baseball Reference. Has him hit like 50 home runs, batting. Okay. So I don't have to do the, because you can really play around, because basically Baseball Reference is a giant spreadsheet. Let's see, 162 game average. So I don't have to do any looking. Boy, he hasn't played too many games. What the hell? Let's see. How do I find the 162 games? All right. I don't know where it's at. And I don't want to look too hard. Royce Lewis has only played 88 games. That's unreal. Played 12 games in 2022, 58 games last year, and he played 18 games this year. But in those 88 games, over 3 seasons, his batting average, his slash line is 316, 375, 610, 27 home runs, 71 RBI, 14 doubles, 6 stolen bases. That's crazy. Mark says, Santo better than Schmidt. John just threw his computer out the window. That was my goal. That was my goal with that comment. Never mind. That was not the Cub one. More coffee needed. What was that in reference to? Schmidt WAR was 107. John says 162 game average is right below career totals. It's right under his 3 season stats. Oh, shit. It's right in frickin' front of me. 162 game average for Royce Lewis. So 162 game average would be a 316, 316, 375, 610 slash line. 11 stolen bases, 50 home runs, 131 RBI, 26 doubles. That's freaking amazing. Let's see. John says, I knew the answer, Shane. I needed Bo to verbalize it. David says, WAR takes into account the position you play, more top first baseman than third baseman during Santos' era. Okay, so that makes a little more sense. So really you can't compare positions. You can't compare a first baseman to a third baseman. Brian says, basement remodel starts today. 6 to 8 weeks of power tool noises while I work from home. That doesn't sound fun. John has no idea who Royce Lewis is because he's only played 88 games. He's always hurt. Minnesota Twins. Was he a number one? No, he was not a number one pick. He was a high draft pick though. Drafted. Oh, he was the first overall pick. First overall pick, 2017. Like at one time, he was the number one prospect in baseball. So there you go. There you go. All right. I'm going to run. I got some shipping to do. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Visit my eBay store. Go to 99centcards.com. Buy 7 or more. You'll save 25% off at checkout. 99centcards.com. Zach says playing catch up, probably a bad take, but what did Santo do? Is he even a top 10 Cub all time? He is not. I don't think so. One of my Cubs fan stat nerds has put together like his all time. Let me see what he ranks. ATC. Oh, so he has Ryne Sandberg. So this is my buddy Steven, who has like the most amazing Cubs baseball card collection with a completely awesome website to go with it. So this is his based on like all his B WAR, F WAR. So he's got Ernie Banks as the number 1 all-time Cub, Cap Anson at number 2. He's got Ryne Sandberg as the 3rd best Cub of all time, ahead of Ryne Sandberg. Wow. Gabby Harton at number 5, Billy Williams, number 6. He's got Fergie as the 7th greatest Cub of all time, Stan Hack at number 8, Sammy Sosa at 9, Frank Chance, number 10, Three Fingers Brown at number 11. Mark Grace, that's surprising, all the way up there at number 12. Maybe the most surprising, the 13th greatest Cub of all time, Big Daddy Rick Russell, ahead of Joe Tinker and Charlie Root. So that's my buddy Steven's website, allthecubs.com. So there you go. Ryne Sandberg, 3rd greatest Cub of all time, according to his numbers. Brian says, someone with a more amazing Cubs card collection than you. There's a lot of them. There's only there's always somebody, unless you're Ken Kendrick or Marshall Vogel, somebody always has a better collection than you. And unfortunately, there's a lot of Cubs collectors that have better collections than I do. I just have probably the most quantity, but when it comes to quality, there's a lot of collections that blow mine out of the water. John says, Cap Anson can blow me. Mr. Archer said, what's the website? Would love to see that. Allthecubs.com. Allthecubs.com. And this is like his, by the way, he's actually, Steven is the guy's name that runs the website. He is selling most of his collection to buy a lake house. I think he's got some of his stuff from his collection is on PWCC right now. Other stuff will be going to various auction houses. I mean, his collection he's got a PSA 8 Ernie Banks rookie. His 55 Bowman is a 7.5. He's got a PSA 6 Cap Anson from Goodwin. His Allen and Ginter is an SGC 5.5. His Santo rookie's a 9. He's got a Sandberg PSA 10 rookie. A PSA 9 Billy Williams rookie. I mean, just an amazing. He's got the Rizzo 1/1 rookie card from the Diamond anniversary. His collection just is freaking amazing. Oh, his Ginter Jimmy Ryan's also a 5. I've got the 5 also. Zach says Robin Ventura has more Gold Gloves than Ron Santo. David says Three Finger Brown is the subject for this week's Pop Fly Pop Shop print. Oh, that's cool. Orlando says nice website. Yeah, it's great. Mr. Archer says I follow him on IG. Yes, you bet. Yeah, his collection is amazing. So Stevens' his name. allthecubs.com is the website. And a lot of those will be going to, some are at auction already with PWCC, and he's going to be sending some other stuff to different auction houses. All righty. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, visit my eBay store, 99centcards.com. Don't forget, no live show tomorrow or Wednesday. I'll be hanging out with the 1984 Cubs. So I will see you on Thursday morning, right? Tomorrow's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'll see you Thursday morning, 7 a.m. Central. I will be tweeting out some photos. Maybe I'll put some videos together of the event in Club 400. I say that every time, and I usually don't. Maybe this is different. So maybe I'll put some stuff out there. Put some videos up on YouTube. So, all right, I'm going to go ship. Have a great day. See you Thursday.